Houses, condos or land? Buy, rent or sell? Should we invest now or in the future? The Mix 88.5 Property Update.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Mix 88.5 Property Update.
The Mix 88.5 Property Update.
Wednesdays mean our property update. As always, in the studio with us, Tim Gladwin. Afternoon, Tim.
Afternoon, Russell.
As always, every Wednesday afternoon we'll have a look into the property and see how things have been over the last week or so. And I believe it's sort of same but different. I know that's a lovely phrase, isn't it? I'm always going to use that one for forever and ever, but same but different. It's low season, it's quiet, but it's not quiet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there aren't as many people around as there would be here in high season. We've discussed the traditional times for the low season. We've discussed in recent weeks the fact that we're now heading into what we'd ordinarily call the pattier rainy season, where we get typically quite heavy rain for about 6 weeks or so. And that tends to have an effect on the market, whereby things get quieter before the start of the initial phase of the high season, which many people seem to believe starts at as November comes around. But as we've discussed in previous shows, there are sometimes blips in the market, and I call them blips because the market suddenly gets busy and there's no apparent reason why. You know, I've looked, I really have, but it's not easy to identify the causes and reasons why a market in the low season and right now in the rainy season suddenly gets busy. But that's exactly what's happened over the last 2 weeks, and it's not just busy, it's really very busy. Which
is always nice. Maybe it's always something that is influenced by the outside of where we are. Not necessarily something that happens in Paddia, but something that happens somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, I've always been at a loss to explain it, because low season should mean less people and therefore less business. Obviously, you can understand why 1 week or 1 month might be a little bit busier than the previous week or the previous month, but when it's exceptionally busy compared to perhaps a couple of weeks ago, which, as you may recall, when we had the heavy rain, I mentioned that week had been somewhat quieter than we had been in previous weeks, and my thought at the time was perhaps that was the effect of the rainy season, and that things might be then quiet for the next 6 weeks or so, and then obviously we would come into the high season, and things would get a little bit busier. But just to prove me wrong, perhaps, things have changed very significantly, and yeah, it's been really very busy. Been very hard to find the time to get everything done.
Is that because you're the exception to the rule, or is it generally busy for everybody?
No, I'm not naive enough to believe that we exist in isolation to everybody else, and that we are busy where everyone else is.
I was going to say, otherwise there'd be a formula somewhere. What are you doing that no one else is doing to get all the business?
Yeah, absolutely right. Experience teaches you over a number of years that when you're busy, pretty much everyone else is busy. There may be exceptions, of course, 1 or 2, but generally the market will be busy, and similarly, when you're quiet, the vast majority of the market will be experiencing similar conditions.
I'm expecting that another part of the business also is currently very busy, because everywhere I seem to go now, after the rains of a couple of weeks ago, there seems to be a lot of people now, well, bolting the door after the horse has already gone, but shearing up against the rain for the next time around, putting things together after they've been broken down or realise that they got flooded, their property is not quite right, so they're now putting up a wall to make sure the floods don't get in next time. They're putting up, even next door, they're putting up a roof to make sure that the current roof doesn't leak again the next time it rains, so we've got double roofing.
Right. Well, that seems a little bit extreme perhaps, but I suppose you might argue that we are just at that time of year where it's not likely just to be one downpour. Obviously, we had a very significant downpour. We've had a little bit of rain since, although the actual week after that particularly heavy week was not at all bad. This week we've had a bit more rain, and again, historically, you would predict that we're likely to get another wet month or so during October.
We've gone through, actually yesterday, where we did talk about a couple of months back, where as you travel up the main highway in towards Bangkok, the rain hits you hard. And I got hit hard twice yesterday, coming up to town and then coming back to town. So I'm expecting that we're going to get a lot more here very soon, and hopefully Sukhumvit doesn't turn into a river again.
Yes, indeed. I must say, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think every single time I've travelled up to Bangkok in the last couple of months, I've experienced similar conditions, and it's been pretty much in the same place. As soon as I get onto Highway 7, which is obviously around about Chonburi, and thus about halfway to Bangkok, and as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, the other side of the mountains, the weather changes, and it changes very significantly. I'm not an expert in weather patterns, but there's something that happens once you get to that area, and the rain has been absolutely and utterly horrendous, making me very, very grateful that my home is in Pattaya and not in Bangkok, or indeed anywhere between.
Halfway down.
Yeah, anywhere between the start of the motorway there and Bangkok.
So being busy, or the little blip being busy, does that mean we've been turning visits into deals, or is it still just we've got a lot more people looking?
No, it's a combination of everything, I'm very happy to say. More customers, more inquiries. As I've mentioned in the past, one of the compensations typically of low season is that while you don't necessarily have as many people walking into the office, as many inquiries, what you do tend to have is a higher conversion rate. A higher proportion of those people who come into the office are genuine and end up doing a deal. And that's long been one of the compensations of the low season. And it's meant that while you may be very much busier in high season, the difference between the amount of money you make is typically not that different. What we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, like I say, has been a combination. A high level of inquiries, but more importantly, those inquiries have been from genuine people. And those genuine people, when they've seen the property that they like, they have been surprisingly quick to do the deal. It's a combination of factors that is relatively unusual for this time of year, in any year, in a year that's obviously significantly better than you might say this is when you look at the global economic situation. But it's been an extraordinary sort of a couple of weeks, really.
Is that looking at also the market, because there's now a lot more opportunities, a lot more choice on the market, a lot more nicer things coming up that are now finished, or some new ones being launched, that they could say that, oh, actually, I do want to have a look now, because there does seem to be a lot more around that I can pick and choose from?
Well, I think it's a combination of factors, and certainly I don't think there's any question that over the last perhaps year, 2 years, a number of developers, and we've mentioned people in the past, Heights Holdings, Matrix, Iguana, these sorts of people have definitely brought a new product to the market. In terms of the individual units, as we've often discussed, the 35, 36 square metre one-bedroom units have proved to be very, very popular. The nature of the developments in which those smaller units are now being built, and again, this is something we discussed recently, they've moved to this resort style of condominium, which in nature is very much quasi-hotel. So while the rooms are small, compared to a purely residential condominium, which you might describe a lot of the condominiums in Pattaya that have been built here over the years as that. These are a slightly different creature. And while I'm sure there will be people who stay in them full-time or long-term, I think a high proportion of those people who eventually use them will be people who are either holidaymakers or people who are here for extended periods, but not full-time, not perhaps 6 months or a year. People who are there for 2 months, 3 months, perhaps at the most. Instead of going to a hotel, you're going to a place that's affordable because it's relatively small, and like I say, the
small but got everything there.
Yeah, well, there's two things. They have everything. So a hotel room, you wouldn't, for example, have a kitchen, and so if you want to eat, you go outside. But these have a kitchen, so they give you the ability to eat in as and when you choose to do so. It means it's much more of a home. Hotel rooms tend to be a little bit impersonal, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a kitchen and you've got a nice sofa looking at a flat screen TV, it feels much more homely than an average hotel room.
And sometimes much nicer than your ordinary home.
Well, absolutely right. But in addition to that, the space has been used very efficiently. I think Mickey at Iguana said to me, one comment that they get from an awful lot of buyers, a lot of investors, is that when they actually see these units, they look far bigger than they had anticipated they would.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've discussed many times in the past, how using space efficiently can make the same square meterage look very, very different in two different apartments. And if you do use the space well, 35 square meters doesn't need to be that small, if that's the right way of putting it. These units have a nice balcony. I think the balconies are 1.2 meters by 2.9 meters. So
table and chairs?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Once you're over a meter in depth, there's plenty of space out there. It's not an enormous balcony, but it's a usable balcony. And there are undoubtedly developments around where balconies are not, on a practical level, usable. They are so small that you can't actually get a chair on there.
Just a plant pot.
That's right. But these, they have a balcony that's usable. They have a small and very attractive European-style kitchen, a nice sofa with a TV opposite it with a coffee table, and the price is certainly for Matrix Iguana. And if you're looking at Amazon, for example, you're talking about getting a unit fully furnished, so everything's in there, it's ready to move in, and when you're talking about prices starting at around about 1.5 million baht, it's good value, as we've discussed before. And you've got these, as we said the other day, 3-tier swimming pools in that case, with waterfalls running down from them, beautiful greenery everywhere. It's really very, very attractive. And if you're a holiday maker or someone here for a little bit longer, it would be a very, very attractive option.
And a great place to stay if you've got all the bits and pieces there. Are they making use of the space by making sure that what they put in there is built in tidily and organised from a long time before they actually get going?
Yeah, absolutely right. The layout's really very good. They use the space as efficiently as perhaps one could. The bedroom, well, any bedroom really. A bedroom is somewhere to sleep.
At least it should be, because that's where you've got to get yourself into a good sleeping pattern. If you're going to say the bedroom is, well, actually I've got the TV and it's sort of somewhere to go down and watch a movie, or it's sort of somewhere to socialise with a friend, then you're not going to actually do what it's supposed to be doing. There is a little dark room, keep you nice and cuddly, and sleep.
Absolutely. So you've got a queen size bed in there. You've got somewhere to put a TV opposite if you want to. Bedside tables, a wardrobe. There's not a lot else you really need.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got. You've got a small, 9 to 12 square meter bedroom, which is not that bad, because obviously, 12 square meters, you're talking by 4 meters by 3 meters.
Yeah.
And that's not that small. It sounds small, but it's not that small when you get in there. I've seen smaller bedrooms. I really have, even in houses that I've seen bedrooms smaller than 9 square meters. And all right, you're not going to hang around, you're not going to swing a cat around, but once you've got your bed in there, your bedside tables, and those things you need for a bedroom, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And the living room, again, you've got in addition to the sitting area, you've got a little dining area and a kitchen. When you look at these units as something for a tourist or someone here for 2 or 3 months, they work exceptionally well. It's going to work out cheaper for them than a hotel. It's more convenient than a hotel, because you've got your kitchen, you've got the facilities. I think, speaking specifically about Amazon, you've got 8 Rai, you've got a huge pool, you've got your rooftops areas on the blocks, gym, lobby area, restaurant. It's all there for you, and you can understand why people are buying these units. It's a simple, affordable investment product with an obvious ability to provide a healthy income. But also, if you are renting them out short term, there's a lot of people who come here themselves for 1-2 months a year. If you're not getting involved with long-term tenants, obviously if you've got a tenant who's doing a year's lease or a repeating year's lease in your accommodation, you're not going to be able to use it. If you buy accommodation that's suitable for short-term lets, then the great advantage is you can book your periods at the start of the year and say, right, I'm going to be there for those 2 months. For the rest of the period, it's free for short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And that solves the issue of people who want to buy a property here and for it to earn money for them when they're not using it. Because the traditional market here, which has all been all about long-term leases, has always caused that problem. Well, if I rent that long-term,
I can't use it.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
If I use it for 2 months,
no one else wants it. You ruined everything
there for 10 months. So a big inconsistency. But these kind of units, it's very, very obvious that problem is effectively cured.
Which is always nice. It's the property update, Mix 88.5 Wednesday afternoon. Tim Gladman is our guest. If you want to get hold of Tim, 038 252 588 is the phone number. Patia@solmansthailand.com is the email, and www.solmansthailand.com is the website.
Houses, condos or land? Buy, rent or sell? Should we invest now or in the future? The Mix 88.5 property update. Houses, condos or land? Buy, rent or sell? Should we invest now or in the future? The Mix 88.5 property update.
Now, the blip in the market, is that sort of, it's high season already, or it's just something that is similar to high season but just very short period?
Yeah, I don't think it's the first impression of high season. I really don't. I think it's something completely different. And these blips, as we discussed a few weeks, maybe a couple of months ago, they are a very well-established part of the Pattaya real estate market. Prior to the onset of low season, I think we discussed it then, and I said at the time that there would be likely 1 or 2 blips that come along for no apparent reason and change the market. Other than that, things sort of poodle along in the low season, but then you get your blips and things go crazy. And typically,
is the blip sort of better than high season? Because again, it's not so many people around, not so many inquiries, but good business out of a small group.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. If high season continued like this, then it would be very, very good business-wise for ourselves and I'm sure many other brokerages. High season is not generally this busy, with a combination of inquiries, genuine customers, and people ready to do deals as quickly as they have been recently. And if high season was that good, then yeah, it would be a fantastic market in which to operate. It would be very, very
We'd all
nice.
Become real estate brokers.
Absolutely right. It's unlikely. Experience suggests we've seen this before. It's happened before, and it's very nice when it happens. Typically, it lasts a certain amount of time, and then again, for no apparent reason, it drops off, and we're back to normal. It's nothing out of the ordinary, even though it is extraordinary, if you follow, because while it is an extraordinary situation, we've seen it before, and I'm sure we'll see it again next year and the year after. It's just the nature of the Pattaya market, it seems.
Which is always nice to keep you a little bit busy through the lower season. Is it anything to do with people saying, right, I've had enough of the UK, I've had enough of Europe, I've had enough of Greece, that's for sure, and anything goes with the euro, we've had enough, so let's go somewhere else. How about Thailand?
Yeah, I think we all find ourselves speculating to one extent or another as to exactly what's causing this, what's happening, and certainly in the past, in the articles that I write and in the discussions that we have, obviously we have talked about what is likely to happen to the market, what could happen to the market. It's obviously speculation, nothing's set in stone, but nevertheless, one of the things I have been saying for some time is that with the way things are in the West right now, there are a lot of problems. I'm sure people are getting sick and tired of the downturn. We've had an effect here, but during this period of time, domestically, Thailand's been doing very well. In the West, they've had it bad now for over 3 years, and you would anticipate that people are getting well and truly sick of it. In the news, we now hear that things are getting even worse, and we're on the very precipice of a double-dip recession. Now, if you've been in the UK or wherever else in Europe or the USA during the last 3 years, and you've had all this bad news, and people have been saying, oh, it'd be 2 or 3 years before it gets better this time, and here we are 3 years down the line, and we're now being told it's going to get worse again. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who are starting to lose faith and starting to feel like they need to make a change. I've suggested, like I say, in the past, that the downturn is such in the West, and it's so significant, that there will likely be people who know Thailand well, have been here holidaying perhaps for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and they think, well, the
Why
UK, you know, such are the problems in the UK or wherever else, I'm going to go and give Thailand a try. And maybe this is a manifestation of exactly that. I don't know. It's a hypothetical.
I would hazard a chance at it and say yes, that because of all the problems there, and it's only getting harder in the UK and obviously across Europe as well with the other bits that are coming. So why not? When we do talk about the double dip and they talk about the recession and everything else, it always seems to be, well, actually Asia is not doing so bad. So obviously this is going to be a great place to invest your money into some bricks and mortar, because it was always smashed into you as a kid that bricks and mortar is the way to invest.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And even if people aren't saying, right, that's it, I'm leaving the West, I'm going to move and live in Asia, what they may be doing is saying, well, we're on the precipice of this double dip recession. I have no idea what's going to happen to real estate prices in the West. I have no idea what's going to happen to the stock markets in the West. The chances are both are going to fall. In the UK specifically, we're hearing right now that the government's plan is to change planning laws such that a lot more land will be able to be built upon. The supply of properties will go up, and prices of pre-established properties will go down. So there's a threat to the market price of real estate in the UK right now. Maybe people, you know, even if they're not saying I'm going to move to Thailand, that's it. Maybe they are saying, well, I'm going to diversify my investments a little bit. I'm going to move a little bit of money out of whether it's real estate in the UK or the stock market, and I'm going to invest in some real estate in Thailand. I'm not going to necessarily buy big luxury properties, but I'm going to buy some of these investment properties, which I can very clearly see will provide me with a nice income, bearing in mind the fact that tourist numbers in Thailand went up 13% last year, the fact that they're predicted to increase by a higher percentage this year. Obviously, people are going to come here. So when you're buying property that suits tourists very, very well, there's a lot of logic to such a decision. Certainly, I was speaking to someone yesterday. He told me that a good friend of his had pulled all his money out of the stock exchange in the US. He was giving up on it, and he wanted to buy a number of. He's got a few condos here already. He wants to buy a number more.
Nice.
And that's indicative of exactly what we're saying. Maybe that is what's happening. You know, while it's dark days in the West, historically, going back the last 3 years, as things got worse in the West, that would preclude a market rally here. But maybe it's got to the stage now, where as things get worse in the West, we have the ability to see a benefit from that, because people have to invest their money somewhere. You know, if things are going to get worse, the most dangerous thing is to leave your assets in cash, because hyperinflation is potentially just around the corner.
Stick it in gold.
Yeah, well, but then apparently the gold is now falling in price, and the suggestions are that the gold rally's over. So I'm not really sure where the safe havens are. Maybe,
but even with the problems with the economy, prices here have not nosedived as they have done in the States, or they have done in certain cases in the UK. They've still remained fairly stable.
Yeah, and that goes back to a point that we discussed a long time ago. Here in Pattaya, in particular, the market is driven by foreign investors and foreign money. Obviously, a minority of the buyers here buy with the benefit of mortgage finance. What drives the property markets down in the West, to a large extent, is people defaulting on mortgages, mortgage properties being repossessed in great numbers, and then flooding the market. Obviously, supply then is very significant. The economy is bad, demand is low, and the net effect is reduced prices. Here, we don't have that, or not to any significant extent. Obviously, some Thai people buy with mortgages. A few Farangs who are married to Thais and well established here, work permit, long-time residents, they can get finance, but it's very rare that they get the extent of finance that is available in the West, the 90-95% that they're rushing to get, or they were rushing to get back to before things got worse again. Here it's far more sensible, typically 50 to 70% finance, which is a far safer level. You're talking about people who can afford 30 or 50% deposit, and therefore people who are actually unlikely to be in a position to default on a mortgage. Because if you can afford a significant deposit, the chances are that you're better off financially than someone who needs a 95% mortgage in the first place.
Are you getting any buyers coming in from Greece these days? Because I believe that they're going to get a bucket load of cash very soon, so are they going to come over here and start spending it? Or do we think that that is going to be the final downfall of Europe now?
Well, who knows? The last thing I saw was this suggestion of creating, I think, 1.75 trillion euro fund. It just seems extraordinary to me. It really does. You've got a country that has been given an awful lot of money already. Notwithstanding them being given that money, they're now in the same situation, maybe even a slightly worse situation. Do you keep bailing them out, or do you just give up on them? One would have thought that the argument of not throwing good money after bad must be high on the agenda.
Yeah, I'd be on that. I'd be on that one. Sorry.
Yeah, that would be my attitude. And how bad can it be? I mean, I suspect there will be some banks who are very, very exposed to the Greek situation who may struggle. But businesses go broke all the time. Now, it's not great, and I'm sure people who are invested in those banks will not be happy about it. But the problem is, we seem to have this that globally, this fascination that a bank must not fail, that investors must not lose money in banks, even though the same investors might lose money in all sorts of other businesses in which they invest, which go bust. But there's this thing about banks. Banks must not go bust. Yeah. And maybe, you know...
It's probably the people that work there that are saying that because they want to keep their jobs and keep their investments and keep their money.
Well, you do wonder, because there's probably self-interest. You know, the fact of the matter is, a bank is a business like any other business.
Yeah.
Is it good for the economy for them to go bust? Absolutely not. Should it cause the problems that we've already had in anticipation of this happening? I'm not sure. I think this whole confidence issue with economies and markets, I tend to think it's a little bit overblown. There's no reason, you know, just because banks and certain other investors lose money, I don't see why that should necessarily cause a breakdown in the whole world economy.
I'm just actually trying to figure out what the numbers are and how big Lehman Brothers were compared to the country of Greece. Because when you look at, and it's been on the Business Daily a couple of times over the last week or so, about how 3 years later they are still trying to sort out how much money was involved with Lehman Brothers and how much they owed and who owes to what and where and how. And they're talking of billions and billions and billions. So possibly them going under is not a lot of difference from Greece.
Yeah, and actually the direct effect of Lehman going under is one thing, but the situation is made so much worse because of the panic that then ensues.
Yeah.
A good example, for example, is HSBC. HSBC was not exposed to the subprime crisis to any significant extent. It was in a very, very stable position financially, and during the year of the crisis still did very well. Yet nevertheless, their shares fell off a cliff. It's clearly not a direct effect, because they weren't even exposed to any significant extent. It's this whole situation with the markets and confidence and panic selling. Yeah. And it's that, as much as anything, that causes the problems with the economies. One would think, maybe, that the government should step in and say,
wait, it's not that bad.
Yeah, well, and also deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there are ways of dealing with it. The problem is we put all our eggs in one basket, all our eggs in this capitalist basket. And, you know, there's a movie by Michael Moore, Capitalism, A Love Story, I think it's called. And it's worth a watch, because a lot of the things that we take for granted in terms of business and why things happen, he shows them to be... Well, he shows them up to be not what what we think they are. And
well, I just have the word that once you said the too much panic, it brings to mind for me, sorry, a little bit old now, but Dad's Army. You know, don't panic, Mr. Mannering. Sorry, just a flash that came to me there with Dad's Army and the markets. That's too much panic in it. Just get it over and done. It's not that bad.
It's the same shame people don't judge companies on their own merits rather than on the merits of the market generally. And or, you know, if Lehman's collapses, why should a perfectly healthy bank suffer a share price meltdown? It just doesn't make any real sense. And I think that's the greater problem, rather than the the direct effect that would happen, for example, if Greece were to default on their debts.
Okay, well, while we've been talking about a bit of finance, let's have a look at the markets this week. Everyone seemed to be getting a little bit better. The pound is up to 48.39, whereas last week it was 47. So that's a little bit of gain for the pound. We're quite happy about that in some ways, and then a bit sad that in other ways.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if when I go on holiday to the UK next year, it's back down at 47, I certainly won't complain.
Okay.
Because I'll be getting more bang for my baht when I pull it out of the ATM. But right now, certainly from the perspective of British investors and British tourists, it's a good thing.
Okay. The US dollar seems to be gaining as well. 30.96 is the US dollar this week as opposed to 30.02 last week. So a little bit of good news for the American dollar. Maybe Mr. Obama is suddenly getting something right?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I read an analysis of the currency situation this week, and I only briefly read it and didn't concentrate too hard. But they were basically talking about, with the threat of the current economic situation, people going for safe havens. Now, I don't know how the pound, the euro, and the US dollar are safe havens, but they seem to believe there was some logic in it, and they've got far more qualifications in finance than I have, so okay. I'll rely on their assessment.
All right, well, so we're buying some dollars. The Aussie dollar not changing too much at all, 30.61 this week and 30.58 last week. The euro making a little bit of ground, 42.03 and 41.05 last week, so the euro is a little bit better. I can't see that lasting.
You wouldn't think so. You really wouldn't think so. But nevertheless, there's obviously got to be some underlying reason for it. Those people who are basically responsible for these things, they must have confidence that something's happening, such as, to drive it up by basically, one. Yeah. I mean, it's a big increase.
It is.
Much bigger than we've seen in recent months.
And hopefully it doesn't fall apart completely. So at the moment, your million baht condo, if you're going to buy a million baht condo this week, would cost you $32,299 US dollars or 20,670 quid if you're going to buy one. Let's get into what we're going to buy then. Property of the week this week. Another couple of properties this week, both in Bang Sarai.
Yeah, a couple of new listings that are both very, very nice. Both of them in very nice, relatively small, gated communities in Bang Sarai, which for those people who are not familiar is about a 15-minute drive down Sukhumvit Road from South Pattaya.
Yep.
And actually generally quite a straightforward, relaxing drive, not too much traffic, and a very, very scenic area, lovely bay, some very nice seafood restaurants down there, and an area that's becoming ever more popular with foreigners. The first one is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on, I think, about 100 square 400 square metre plot with very nice landscape garden. Everything inside is done really, really nicely. Nice furniture, well coordinated. Just looks really nice. It's I think it's about 150 square metres inside. The asking price 3.95 million, which for a house in a nice gated community, and a gated community that's finished, all the houses are built, and it not necessarily the same situation that exists in every gated community in this area. But it's really nice, and at that price, a great buy.
Okay. Nice stuff, and obviously being out of town is always quite nice, being in a little quieter area.
Well, I think so. Bang Sarai is a very much a favourite spot of mine. I used to live there, and probably will return one day. But the other property, as I said, another nice gated community, another 3-bed, 2-bath house, a nice L shape with a really nice big private swimming pool and an absolutely gorgeous landscape garden. Inside again, really very, very nice. Very well maintained, very clean, very tidy, nice furniture. Again, good coordination, so it looks really nice.
Yeah.
This unit's only available for rent, but at 25,000 baht per month, I think it's
bargain.
Superb value. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. As long as you get a car and you drive one down there, and you don't get stopped by the floods that we had over the last couple of weeks. But a couple of nice properties. You want to know anything more about that? You can always contact him. His contact details are 038 252 588 on the phone. patia@solmansthailand.com is the email, and www.solmansthailand.com is the website address. And we'll be back same time, same place next week for another session of the property update right here at Mix 88.5. And if you're watching it on the TV, it's a Friday evening on Patia Mail TV. Thanks, Tim, as always, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. That was Tim Gladwin, our property expert for the Mix Property Update. Weekly, every Wednesday at 12 noon here at Mix 88.5 and every Friday on Patia Mail. See you next week.
Houses, condos or land? Buy, rent or sell? Should we invest now or in the future? The Mix 88.5 Property Update.